If you want to pump your body and expand your mind, there's only one place to go. Mind Pump. Mind Pump with your hosts, Sal DiStefano, Adam Schaefer, and Justin Andrews.
In this episode of Mind Pump.
Yeah.
So look, for the first 40 minutes, we don't talk a whole lot about fitness, but we have a lot of fun. That's our intro portion of the episode. We start out by talking about Organifi's brand new flavored gold juice. This is phenomenal to drink at night. Improve your sleep. It's relaxing.
A little bit of a caramel tint.
It's incredibly delicious. Also, later on in the episode, we mentioned Organifi's nootropic and gut health supplement, Pure. Now, Organifi is one of our sponsors. If you go to Organifi.com/mindpump and use the code mindpump, you'll get 20% off. Then we talk about skateboarding.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm definitely the best skateboarder of the group. Then we talk about the challenges.
You sure look like it.
That youth face today versus past generations. Adam tends to think that the generation today, it's just as hard as it was, the generation of the 1950s and 60s.
Don't make me say it.
Just different. It's just different,
I'm looking out for all our millennials and iGeners. I got your back, guys.
Yeah. I don't want to hurt their feelings. Good idea.
Didn't see that one coming.
Then we talk about the viewing habits of children and the self-destructive nature of the philosophy of collectivism. It's resulted in 100 million deaths in the 20th century. Not to make you feel bad for it, but you might learn a thing. Then we talk about fitness. This is 40 minutes in. We start answering fitness questions. The first question was, what are some things that you can do to optimize brain function? You want to stay sharp. You want to stay fluid with your words. You want to have good thinking. Find out what you can do in that part of this episode.
Don't hit your head.
The next question was, how strong should the average individual be for health and longevity? But we go a little further. We talk about, look, if you want to be a strong person in the gym, what should you aim for with your lifts? Next question was, what's the difference between fresh and frozen veggies, besides the fact that one is frozen and one is not? Are there differences in nutrition? Should you eat frozen? Should you eat fresh? Find out. And the final question, of course, we're fitness experts, but sometimes we pretend to be experts in other subjects that we're not. This question is,
I love doing that.
What's the best way to get over a breakup? We give our relationship advice. Also, this month, MAPS Anabolic, the best flagship program that we offer for muscle building and metabolism boosting. Like if you want a metabolism that burns calories like a hot furnace, MAPS Anabolic is the program for you. Well, it's half off this month. We have taken the price and cut it in half. All you got to do is go to mapsfitnessproducts.com and use the code RED50, RED50, for 50% off. That website also has all of our other MAPS fitness programs. We have a lot of them. Here's what you got to do, okay? Go to mapsfitnessproducts.com. Go through all of our programs. Learn about them. Find the one that works best for your goals and your body. You will get in shape faster and better if you get the right program for your body. You can find it there, mapsfitnessproducts.com.
Hey, Doug, I saw you take home last night. I saw you take the Organifi, the new flavor, home.
Mm-hmm.
Did you try it?
I did.
How was it?
Fantastic.
What is the flavor?
Yeah.
It's chocolate with the gold juice, cacao with the gold juice.
Oh. Any new herbs in there, like sassafras?
Already?
Yeah.
Already you're scoring points.
That was weak.
Yeah.
Listen. That's not bad. Listen, Linda.
That was
Listen,
perfectly
Linda.
interjected.
Sassafras.
Yeah, you stop with all your sassafras.
Well, let's see where you guys can bring it in later. That was forced.
But I want to hear about this flavor.
Well, if you like hot chocolate with a kind of a caramely flavor, you'll like this.
Really?
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Well, I like the regular gold juice flavor. That
sounds like heaven.
Or cold
bear
chocolate.
shit in the
Doesn't have to
woods?
be hot. It can be cold as well.
Is it better than the original gold flavor?
They're different. They're both great, but I'm a big fan of cacao or chocolate, and so I really like this one.
Big fan of cacao.
Maybe our fans don't know this, but when we travel, which we don't do as much, but we used to travel a lot. Each one of us there's always something that each one of us would bring. It's just a personality thing. That each one of us tends to bring something, and Doug always has a bar of extra dark chocolate.
I love chocolate.
He literally has it with him every time.
always does.
I'm a chocolate fanatic,
And
but it has to be very dark.
Yes, and while we're working, he'll break off a piece of it and just.
If
I just
it's
suck it.
If it's the one like the one that you eat though,
Suck
it's
on that
not
cacao.
it's not really that bad for you. The sugar content on it
It's very
not-
low.
Yeah, it's
Like half a bar has like 6 grams of sugar.
Yeah,
that's a whole half a bar.
Do you get stimulated by the chocolate? Like not like that.
Whoa,
Hey.
easy there.
Google that. Stimulate me with the chocolate. Do you get stimulated? Does it have a stimulant effect on you?
I don't feel like it does, but
Okay.
maybe it does.
Because I know that you're sensitive to caffeine.
Definitely sensitive to caffeine. Yeah.
Chocolate, especially dark chocolate or high amounts of cacao, have a compound called theobromine that is chemically similar to caffeine.
Yeah.
So it'll give you, some people give them a stimulant kind of wake up effect. You know what I mean?
That's the actual chocolate that will kill dogs.
Now, did you
you
Doug?
said that's so
fun
evil.
fact,
You
yeah.
just said that's so
I know.
random?
You looked at me all crazy.
Actually,
with
my
that.
dog's gotten a hold of my chocolate before. I kind of freaked
And
out.
it was okay?
Okay,
Oh,
yeah.
man.
Is it from that? Is it the theobromine?
Is that isn't it like is that kind of a myth? Like where you
I don't know.
The
You're
reason
you're not
it's a
supposed
myth-
to eat
From
and
my
then go-
experimentation,
myth
it seemed
is-
to be a myth.
Because it's the milk chocolate. It's mainly consists of the sugar and milk. But if you actually have like concentrated chocolate, that's where the problem is.
I feel like it's like when your mom used to say, "Don't get in the pool after you eat your sandwich." You know, after you have your bologna sandwich, Sal, don't get in the pool.
Oh, because you get cramps?
Yeah, that's made up.
Actually,
Yeah, it's made up.
there's a little bit of truth to that. It's not the same. It's
There's
not
a-
like what they said.
What
where-
the fuck does that mean? There's a little bit of truth to everything.
well,
no,
I mean, I got hair on my palms a little bit.
Yeah, if you
Gotta shave every now and
If
then.
you look at it with a microscope.
So, Doug, when you made the gold juice, you used what kind of? Would you use coconut milk, almond milk? Would you use?
I always use macadamia milk.
Do you heat it up?
You know, yesterday I just did it cold.
Okay.
So it was not the gold juice, it was the gold with the cacao.
So have you heated it up and frothed it yet? Because that's where it's at.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure that's great.
Oh,
But I haven't tried it
I'm
yet.
a big frother.
yeah, you are a big frother
Yeah,
and a sassafrasser.
I'm a sassafras and frothing son of a bitch.
So last night, actually, I did it cold. So I just put the powder into the cold milk. I actually took a frother to it to just stir it up. And I drank that. It was like drinking chocolate milk. And you know that gold juice has kind of a caramely flavor. Mm-hmm. And so you kind of get caramel and chocolate. And I don't know. I don't know if they put a little salt in there too and make it salted chocolate caramel.
wow.
I feel like you just made that up.
I kind of made that up.
I
but
do feel like
that's
yeah,
what it
this is-
seemed like to me.
Add some salt.
But if you don't have it in there, you can always add it. That's exactly right.
It is
Jesse.
relaxing, that's for sure. It's got the turkey tail in there, a little reishi. Mm-hmm. Makes you feel nice and calm.
I slept like a baby, so it worked.
Woke up every 2 hours.
What
yeah,
is-
crying.
what is turkey tail? Is it a root or what is it?
No, if you look at a turkey,
No.
the back part of a turkey is the tail.
It's not that.
It is an herb, and it has sedative properties. Similar to chamomile or passion flower, they increase the release of, I believe, GABA in the brain, which has got this kind of calming effect. So
Now, why
Gabba gabba.
why use one and not the other?
what do you mean?
Like, why use turkey tail and not chamomile?
Oh, they're both really, really good. That's a good question. I like chamomile quite a bit too because it's very, very mild and it's very safe. Passion flower is much stronger. I wouldn't give passion flower, for example, to a kid, but I would give chamomile to a kid all day long. So I guess it just depends. Now, chamomile is a flower, and so some people can have if you have like allergic kind of reactions to flowers, sometimes people don't like chamomile. But I don't know. I'm not quite sure why turkey tail would be better. I think it's probably got more adaptogenic properties.
I try to do chamomile with the boys in their water. So
Does it work on them?
They don't like it. I can't get them really to drink it up. The
Even
way
if you put it in like some cheese?
So no, what I did was I took chamomile tea and I brewed it, and then I put it in the refrigerator and I got it cool, and then I poured it in their bowl for their water, so they would drink it like water. And I did that when I was doing that. This was before we had Ned, right? So since then I've used Ned. Ned's worked fine for helping settle them down because they get anxiety when we travel. So when I would take them when Katrina and I take them on our trips. This is what I was trying the chamomile thing, and it just didn't seem to work. Not as well as the Ned stuff.
Chamomile's really, really, really mild. It's something you can drink every night. You know, it's not like other sedative type
I feel
herbs.
it though. When I use it, I feel it.
I love it.
Yeah, I can tell a difference.
I give it to my kids sometimes. My daughter, I'll give it to her because if she gets sometimes she'll wake up in the middle of the night and get scared. So I'll give her chamomile, and she goes to sleep. And it's like I said, it's very safe. I know in Italy, the doctor will recommend giving it to babies who have colic. It's also good for digestive issues as well.
That's
so
good to know.
yeah, but yeah, your dogs are pretty anxious. They're anxious little turkeys, aren't they?
No, they are. They are. They're a pain in the ass. It's the one draw, and I don't know if it's a breed thing or not, because I feel like I've been around bulldogs that are really cool in public, but mine are just they're a pain in the ass, man.
Do they calm each other down? Are they worse alone?
No. So by themselves, they're actually really good. It's they hype each other up. So like a lot of times Katrina and I will walk them separately. Just because they're easier to handle. If they're by themselves and other dogs or runners or people go by, like our neighborhood's got a lot of people walking around and running around and walking their dogs. And when you got both of them on the leash together and you're by yourself, like especially Katrina, like they'll pull you. They'll pull on her, and it's kind of a headache to try and settle them down. And they really vibe off of each other's energy. If one of them's by themselves, totally different. They don't even care. It's no big deal.
Have you tried a Thunder Vest or whatever?
Yeah, and they.
It's like a wife beater for dogs.
Yeah,
it works on me. Calms me the fuck down.
Wow. Yeah, you get the same kind of effect with just a really tight sweater and stuff that they wear, and they love that. They do like that,
and they're so round and cute. I almost want to wrap them up myself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just wrap them up like a sausage.
Yeah, they're. Do
they resist? Like if you wrap them up in a blanket?
No, not at all. Actually, it's
you know what I mean.
Funny thing about that breed too is like, so if you go tell them like you want to put a shirt on, they'll perk up because they know what you're doing, and then you go get one of their shirts and they'll come running over to you and they'll sit down and they'll be super excited for you to put the clothes on them.
So funny.
You can dress them, you put hats on them and everything like that. That's a funny thing about them is that's the only breed I've ever had that allows you.
That's what they fuck with them like that.
Cool
yeah, that's why you always see like bulldogs as like when you see pictures of dogs and they got like hats and shit on them and stuff like that.
Riding skateboards.
Yeah, you could do well. Yeah, it's a little bit different than clothes.
Did you try doing that?
Yeah,
you tried having them ride a skateboard.
So what I'm convinced that it's something that they all do because. And what I noticed was the first time I kicked the skateboard out, I mean, Bentley literally got on it, and he didn't ride far, and it wasn't good, but he rode it right away. But why he rode it is because they're so short and low to the ground, and they go bite the wheels. And when they go to bite the wheels, they put their other 2 feet on the...
moves them forward just naturally.
Exactly. So it's almost... And I'm sure that's exactly how this happened. I'm sure some guy who was a skater had a bulldog... pulled it out one time, and the dog went for it right away to chew the rubber tires. And when they go to chew the tires, they have to in order for them to get their little fat necks around to bite, they have to get closer to it so that they put their feet on the board, and then it naturally pushes the board forward. And they're trying to bite the wheel, and the board keeps rolling. So it just kind of
encourages it.
Yeah, it just encourages them already riding it. It's really funny, and I was like, "Oh, okay, I get it now. Like this is why people use bulldogs."
My dog doesn't have any cool tricks.
Yeah, I was gonna say, except shitting on your shoe while you're wearing it.
Yeah, that's a pretty cool trick.
And now, like the problem is, he eats all the socks in the house, and so he actually shit out like 3 full socks the other day, and then turn around and eats it again.
Oh my god!
Like he has to be the dumbest dog I've ever had.
Oh no, poor guy.
He is. He is.
I think
really
he's just.
dumb.
I honestly don't think he's dumb. I think he's just fucking with you.
I
think so.
He's
too.
not. He's not because he's just devious.
Does he didn't he also like spray your curtains or something with with poops?
With poops, yeah. But that was he was sick that night. That wasn't
maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what you think.
You guys have this conspiratorial thing behind all his. He just does stuff like that all the time, and he doesn't think. He runs into the table, just dunk.
Oh no, that's hilarious.
He just does dumb shit all the time.
That's hilarious.
Yeah,
I love it.
It's crazy.
I posted a meme yesterday on my my Insta story, and it has a picture of a wolf. And it says, I think I'm going to go make friends with these humans. Like, what's the worst thing that can happen? And then it says 10,000 years later, and it's got a picture of a little pug with big eyes. Like, it turned into that. You know?
That's fucked up.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh, man.
Yeah, it's messed up.
Oh, dude.
You were talking about the skateboards. It made me think about the skateboard revolution. What decade was it where skateboards...
80s.
Oh, my God. Yeah.
Was it the 70s or 80s?
Was it called Dogtown?
I think it was the 70s.
That documentary about it?
Yeah. 80s.
You know how that all started, right?
Huh.
The original skateboards had metal wheels, and because they've been around for a long time, and The problem with that is, imagine a skateboard with metal wheels. You hit one pebble, you're fucking flying.
Oh, yeah.
That thing's going to stop and you're flying off.
You're going to do an endo.
Yes, it was the invention of the polyurethane wheels that turned them into what they are today. And because you know how it feels on a skateboard, they're smooth and they can hit little rocks and go right over them.
Yeah.
And then I think it was the 70s where it started to kind of take off in California, right? Isn't that what that documentary was about?
Yeah, I think it's like 78. It's like late 70s.
I just remember Doug Kyle. He was my next door neighbor who actually was considered a professional skateboarder back in the 80s. And he would do the where they would go to like the drained out pools. And they would do all those tricks and stuff in there.
That's where the half pipe was invented, right? That's where they got the whole idea.
Yeah, so he was part of that movement of like they would Thrasher magazine and all these things would take pictures of him going and skateboarding in these like emptied out pools.
See, I want to say it was late 70s when California, we had such a bad drought that it was ordered that people drain their pools. So it was like the state said to people, if you own a pool, you got to drain it. We're low on water. And so you had all these people with, empty swimming pools in their backyards. And what these kids would do with these skateboards, and they looked, different than the ones you see today, is they would look over fences looking for these empty skateboards empty pools when nobody was home. Mm-hmm. And then they'd jump the fence and that's how that whole scene got created.
Yeah.
And I mean, it must have been cool to be the first kid to come off the board, because at first they would just up and down, and you must have been. I mean, imagine how cool you were to be the first kid.
Oh yeah.
To just kind of come off the board.
Dude, he taught me some of the very first tricks too. Like I remember where he taught me how to kick flip, and then also how to land on top. So like basically the skateboard turned on its side, so it was like straight up. So the wheels were facing up, and then you jump like on top of that, and then you kick back down. Like so. Anyway, he taught me how to do.
Could you do all that?
Yeah.
No way. You knew how to kick flip and everything?
Yeah.
Really?
It took me like I ate shit for years. Like working on it, but then I gave up because it was just one of those like unforgiving skills. You start doing it and you keep landing on asphalt. It sucks.
That's the. Did you wear what shoes are they? Etsy's?
No, I had some Vans.
Yeah,
I had some checkered Vans.
Yeah, Vans and Vision.
That was a
Vision when we were kids.
That was a big deal.
I was
in
into
school.
skateboarding for a minute there, a hot minute.
At my was this just unique to my school? But we had the skate because skaters became a big thing when I was in high school. It became like they had their own like clique or crew.
Yeah,
but they kind of also they also kind of dressed like cholos a little bit.
Yeah.
Was that the thing? Because they would
That's
wear
a California style.
That's a California. They would wear Dickies. They would still wear the Pendleton sweat shirts or whatever.
Yeah.
But they would skate instead of whatever.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's crazy. Was it a big
Steve Caballero? That guy was my favorite.
Yeah. That was a big thing in your guys' school too, huh? Did you skate, Adam?
I didn't skate, and it wasn't as big in my school. Remember, I grew up.
You guys were right. You guys were standing on horses.
Yeah, no, we were country, right? So I had a very small. We weren't a very diverse school. There's a handful of Mexicans. There was 2 black kids, and then everybody else was white cowboy riding kids for sure.
You were super diverse.
Yeah. No, I totally was. That's why I hung out with all of them, because I didn't really fit in with anybody. Right? There wasn't like a group of guys like me. But you had your jocks and your athletes. So you saw all your athletes, and then you had like your cowboys, and then you had your small group of Mexicans. And then you had like the one token black guy that was hanging out with you, but he was an athlete, so he was hanging out with us. So there really wasn't really the skater clique. There was a handful of kids that skated, but the skater kids were more like the stoners of our school.
Yeah.
Like you were.
They're always the troublemakers.
You were like mostly none of them were like really good. There wasn't really major skate parks there. If you smoked pot, you also had a skateboard. It was kind of like that. It was more of a pot culture with if you smoke pot, you probably have a skateboard too. It was less of like you're a badass skater and you smoke pot.
I went to high school in San Jose, and so we were very diverse. Obviously, San Jose being a very diverse city, so it was. I would say. Obviously, you had your white kids, a lot of Hispanic, large Hispanic population in San Jose. A lot of other minorities, black and other people. And we did have our cliques. And what I'm hearing now from kids is that the cliques are it's not the same. They don't have the same kind of cliques that we did. Like we had stoners that hung out and they listened to metal and they had long hair, and that's where people bought their pot. Yeah. You had the cholos, which
you had the goth, which was totally different too.
Goth.
Back then it was like Marilyn Manson was huge.
Yeah.
And everybody's dyeing their hair and like painting their nails and being all gloomy and shit.
Yep.
And they'd hang out in the parking lot, and then we had the jocks, and then we had the God, what else was there? There was definitely the cowboys and the Hicks.
Oh, we
just call them the Hicks.
We had one cowboy at my school. Poor guy was outnumbered. Like he was the only guy that we had.
God bless him.
Yeah. But it's pretty. But I guess it's a little different now when you talk to kids now. They don't. I don't think they create cliques like they used to.
They don't seem to congregate like that the same way. I feel like everybody's dispersed and doing their own thing. I mean, based off of what Enzo's saying, it doesn't even sound like there's like high school parties are a big thing. Like
really?
So weird.
Yeah, that's what he said. He said it's not a really big deal. Like there's not a lot of people.
That was everything back then.
Who's
throwing the party?
The whole week of school was, 20% get your homework done, 80% figure out where you're getting drunk on the weekend.
Really?
100%.
Yeah. Wow.
Yes. That was 20% of the time it was just make sure you get your shit done, like carry your 3.0 so you could play sport. Or for me, it was 3.0 because I had to play sports.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the time it was like, who is going to get the beer? And whose house can you get to? And
I wonder if because we read about this, the younger generation, and statistically speaking, they do less drugs, they have less premarital sex, they commit less crimes than our generation did. And then we make fun of them for being, sheltered and covered in bubble wrap I wonder if it kind of goes hand in hand. You know what I'm saying? Like they're so like sheltered, which makes them not do certain things, but it also makes them,
that's not
easily
what makes,
offended.
So that's not what makes, according to iGen, the book, that's not what makes them that way. What makes them that way is that information is so readily available that kids are smarter. Like, for example, part of what they attribute the less premarital sex is the statistics on someone who has a kid at 16 years old. Mm-hmm. What happens to them financially and the likelihood of them being on welfare.
16 and pregnant was huge for preventing a lot of
and they actually even talk about that in there, and so they attribute that to that, not so much because they're sheltered. It's because they're smarter.
Kids have known forever that you had sex and people get pregnant. I don't know if that.
No. It's not that part of it. It's that what that
looks like.
Yeah, what that indicates and what the predictions of that person. And the same thing goes for sex before being married and stuff. I think that they have found out that most successful relation, if you get married at and I don't remember what the stats are, but I remember reading it. It's like, if you get married at 17, the likelihood of getting divorced is much higher. If you get married at 20, it's lower. At 25, it's lower. At 30, so as you get older, the likelihood of you divorcing gets lower and lower. So and kids know these statistics now because it's so easily to access this information. And so it's kind of like, you dummy, you're falling in love at 17. You know the likelihood that you're going to get married and meet your sweetheart.
Well, it's also adolescence is also it's just continued to extend. You go back 2 generations, people were moving out and getting married.
But again,
it's just getting older and older.
They attribute that to what I just said.
Well, part of it could also be this. Today, to be a successful contributor to society, you have to have a lot more skills than you did 2 generations ago. You just did. It requires more education, more experience. You're a child for longer. You know what I'm saying? Like a 17-year-old in the 1950s could probably be equipped to get a job and then support a family. A 17-year-old today, unless they invent some crazy tech company, it's probably not going to happen. People live at home longer.
I don't know if I can get on board with that. I don't think it's very hard to start an Instagram account, start snapping half-naked pictures of yourself.
Yeah, but are you going to build a business and support your family?
Fuck, a lot of kids do.
No,
you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know if that.
So.
I don't think that's a fair statement. I don't think it's any easier or harder today than it was.
Requires way more skills. It requires way more. Look, let me put it this way: it's the inflation of what do they call it? The inflation of education or skills. For example, in the 1970s, a 4-year degree was a big deal. Today, everybody has a 4-year bachelor degree, and it doesn't mean anything anymore like it used to because there's so many of them. it's and you go back even further, it's again less skills required. It takes a lot longer now to be an adult than it used to. Kids live at home for a lot longer. Things are more expensive as a result. So I just think it's different.
The ability to become an entrepreneur is far easier today than it was 10 years ago. So the skills required, the barriers to entry are much lower.
That's a short period, though. 10 years is a short period to look at.
Yeah, but I mean, that's I don't know. That's why I just don't know if I agree with you. I don't think it's. I think it's all relative. I mean, I don't ever believe that like our generation has it easier or harder. I mean, it's all the fucking same. It's just different, right? It's all the same but different. Same but different.
Yeah.
Right? It's like there's just different challenges now. There's just different stuff that they have to.
So you don't think that the generation today has a lot easier than say 50 years ago, 60 years ago?
In what aspect?
I don't care.
Just in general.
Yeah, I think if you could choose,
I think that I think the challenges are different. I think that they have different things that they have to worry about that kids in the 50s didn't have to worry about, and so and vice versa. Well, I mean, there certainly wasn't cell phone kids stuck to cell phones and addiction and depression and suicide rates like there are today. I mean, they now have to think about these things, and now is it controllable and is it easy? I don't know. You could argue that putting your phone down and not getting sucked into the social world and
you know what they were doing 50 years ago in schools? They were doing nuclear bomb, dive under your desk,
right?
Drills.
And so if you're somebody in the 50s that you scoff at what the kids have to deal with, and
how's that going to save you?
We say they're a bunch
of know.
We say they're a bunch of pussies, but I mean, in their defense, it's a different challenge. It's just a different challenge.
I think
and it always will be.
I definitely think it's different, but I also think if they could trade, I don't think they would. I think a lot of them would be like, this is a lot harder than I thought. It's funny. I was reading this article in I forgot where it was. I believe it was Reason Magazine, where people are complaining about how expensive it is nowadays, and people were calculating the cost of the cost of living today versus 60 years ago, and saying, look how expensive it is. And they're saying, well, you got to compare apples to apples. Today, what we consider to be normal expenses didn't even exist in the past. We didn't have cell phones, we didn't have cables, we didn't have 2 TVs in the house. Households didn't have 2 or 3 cars. Households had 1 car. So they said if we count apples to apples, it's far less expensive today than it was back then. The difference is today we think you need
accumulated more shit,
way more stuff, and it's accepted you have to have
that.
All the stuff.
I 100% agree with that. I mean, we've definitely. That Mr. Rogers documentary that I talked about. I mean, talks about that. When television came, we had this explosion of advertising and marketing to the younger generation that we never did before. It just didn't exist. Like kids didn't get advertised to the way they did when TV came out, and then from that point on, we just became obsessed with being consumers. We just have to have. It's the next thing. I mean, even if you watch the trend of like clothing lines. There used to be a time when clothes was, or if you were like a JCPenney or whatever like that, there was seasons. It was
like 4 seasons.
Yeah,
they got rid of that whole thing.
Yeah, no, it's weekly now.
Yeah,
there's weekly drops, and that's insane when you think about that.
It is. Have you? Let me ask you guys a question, because I'm all for very open, very free, largely unregulated markets. Allow the market decide what consumers decide what succeeds and what doesn't succeed. But one area where I tend to differ from my other, maybe free market supporting friends is I do think there should be regulations for advertising and selling things to children, because I consider adults. I consider when you're an adult, I think you can make all your own decisions. But I think when you're a kid, it's very different. And I think advertising to children, period, in my opinion, I don't think should just be free and open. I think that should be strictly prohibited, personally.
That's a very interesting discussion, because I could argue both sides. I feel like I would say, well, that's the responsibility of the parents to not allow them to be exposed to that, and that's your choice as a parent. Do you just let your kids roam on YouTube all day long? Do you just let them roam on television all day long to where they get advertised like crazy, or do you police that more closely, and do you educate them on that? And so I could say that the responsibility still falls back on the parents, but then I could also say, like, man, that's a really probably challenging place to be as a parent, to have to police all this shit, not knowing what kind of advertising they're getting bombarded, and it's kind of unfair to be picking off children, that don't have.
Well, kids are easily
so manipulated.
The kids are very, very easily manipulated. You could definitely change how they feel and think, and it's not just trying to get them to buy a product. It's also, we know what advertising does as adults. They're trying to get you to buy clothing, but maybe you don't buy the clothing. In the meantime, you feel bad about yourself because you don't look the way that you think you're supposed to now because of the ad, or you're not cool enough, or everybody else is having a good time doing this thing and you're not. If you watch TV channels for kids, look at the commercials that are going to the kids. Pick out one thing on there that's fucking good. It's all garbage. It's all shitty, crazy food with crazy amounts of sugar and highly processed this, that, and the other. It's toys that are terrible. It's all bad shit. And so when it comes to children, I'm for regulating certain things. And I think advertising to kids, I think silly. It's like why are we gonna these are children. Now when they become adults, go for it. Now you make up your own decisions. But I also know understand your argument that it should be up to the parents to police this kind of stuff. So I also kind of agree with that. What I personally think is going to happen, what I would like to see happen because of the way the internet works, is now they have all these parental apps and stuff that I can, for example, I have one on my kid's phone where his phone, he cannot go online after 10 p.m. or before 7 a.m. It just can't. I hooked up his phone that way. And I can also put filters and stuff like that on there. I think that there's a market for stuff like that. I wish there was a market for advertising, but the problem with that is I don't know how that would work. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it'd be.
I think it's crazy.
It's all kind of wrapped into the business model. So
well, and
there's a strong argument
unravel
for
it. Yeah.
Well, I believe that's like one of the fastest growing markets right now is kids and right,
Yeah,
and like YouTube and shit like that. It's supposed to be insane.
Well, you see, how swayed they are to certain channels of them just opening presents and playing video games, and that's huge market for potential businesses to want to advertise into or get their brand name in there somehow. So
yeah, I can waver on this one because I'm against regulation 99% of the time, but when it comes to kids, I
can also see where. Your theory that you've brought up on the show before about what 3D printing is going to do. I mean, it may all be fucking
doesn't even matter.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Like it may get to a point where it's and it'll be interesting to see what happens when anybody and everybody can pretty much have as far as all the things. And maybe that's what it'll take for us to come back full circle when we'll stop valuing things so much because they'll be so readily available for everybody. It doesn't matter if you're rich or poor.
And we'll start to realize this is nothing.
Yeah, you'll start to look at it as it's actually becomes more daunting to have a bunch of shit that takes up a bunch of space in your house and things like that. It's just this is in my way. I don't even use it. I'm getting rid of it.
That's a good point.
You guys remember when we had that guy on talking about esports? And how that was exploding, and
Andy, whatever.
Yeah, so I guess too, and he somewhat brought up some professional teams, within the NBA, within NFL, all these people kind of looking into it. Well, I guess the NBA is all in, they already have this. They're building an actual league for NBA 2K, and having that being a new tournament that basically lives as an esports tournament. So each one of these, the Mavericks and franchises already have invested into an e-game sports team that they've assembled.
Wow.
So they're putting lots of money in that direction.
We need to revisit that conversation.
Yeah.
I forgot about that. I forgot we were supposed to go down and go see. Wasn't that supposed to be this month too?
Yeah.
That's why I wanted to bring it back up again because it's exploding.
No, it is. It's 100%.
It's going to be. 10 years from now, it's going to be massive. Absolutely massive. There's no way it can't be. Kids, we talked about this before. When we were kids were talking about professional athletes. Mm-hmm. Kids don't talk about them anymore. They don't. They talk about gamers.
Yeah.
They know professional gamers' names and they know. Video games, and this is how they compete and play.
They were all excited because they recruited certain names within the space and got them to play for their squad. And the NBA they consider it like, so they have 4 leagues now. So they have the WNBA, they have like the International NBA or something like that, and then this is like going to be their 4th like legit league.
Now, do you guys believe that, or do you believe that maybe you guys have like kind of a distorted view of that because your kids are really heavy into that? Like, I can't, even if, because that gaming I was a gamer too. I love to play, but I was, as a kid, because I played sports, I still was way into professional sports and real athletes more than we were addicted to video games. I mean, all the way up into my mid.
I think it's changed, dude.
It is.
I really,
you
do.
think so? You don't think it's
the excitement and momentum in real sports is definitely dwindling.
No, look at look at, if you go on YouTube and watch the most, because YouTube will tell you what kids are watching. You can see clearly by
it's some of the highest views out of anything.
Oh, go on YouTube and look at the most watched videos and channels for kids, teenage kids even, and it's not just video games. It's people playing video games and competing.
Well, yeah.
No, I know this. I mean, I got my nephew who's 25, like, and working, making great money and stuff like that. You know, he'll tell me like I didn't even think he's like this because I don't even see him play video games that much, but he watches people play video games on YouTube.
Dude, my niece...
Like, what the fuck? That's so weird to
my
me.
11-year-old niece she's got this crush on this boy. Jessica was visiting her like last week, and, you know, we're all on FaceTime or whatever, and then she shows me her phone, and it's this picture of this boy. So I'm teasing her. I'm like, you're not allowed to like boys or whatever. And I'm like, looking at him, I'm like, who is this kid? I'm like, who is that? And she's like, oh, I don't even remember his name. He's a fucking YouTube star.
Yeah.
They don't talk about celebrities from Hollywood. They don't talk about athletes. They talk about YouTube stars and fucking internet stars. They could give a shit about. That's totally going to change the whole game. It's insane.
No, you're right. I mean, Gary Vee just did a video the other day with this little kid he's talking to him, and the kid's like, he asks what he wants to be when he grows up, and he says, I want to be a YouTube star.
All of them say
wow.
that.
Yeah.
All the kids say that.
Yeah. I think my kids even said that. And I'm like, I don't know about that. Have you ever seen that one video of these kids? I think they're maybe like 9 they're probably like maybe 10 or 11, but like they were supposed to dial using like an old school phone, like a cord phone.
Oh, and they didn't. Oh, you mean it was a rotary phone?
Rotary phone. Thank you. And they had no fucking idea how to use it.
How to use
Like,
of course not.
But it's so weird to me. Like it's not intuitive. Like they grab it and like they're like turning the rotary, and they don't even understand that like you have to pick up the phone first and like have a dial tone and like all that kind of stuff. Like completely like clueless. It was crazy to me.
Shit's changing so fast, you know. It's an interesting time to be alive, man. The new media is replacing old media, and there's nothing they can do about it. There's absolutely nothing they can do about it.
Speaking of interesting times, the article that you sent over this morning of the Google getting freaked out over the family statement.
It was their employees. I guess they had a big problem with, and I guess I don't quite understand this. I think what you can do at Google is if you have an issue, you can put it on one of their message boards, and then other employees can upvote it. And if it gets enough upvotes, then the CEO or whoever will address it. And so somebody had a problem with Google referring to family, using the word family, like saying family friendly, as meaning people with kids, because they said it was homophobic, and it's also discriminatory against people without kids. Because me and my husband are married, but we don't have kids.
Right.
And you need to use a different word, like instead of saying family, family suitable or family friendly, you should say all people friendly.
Collective non-binary group.
Yeah, and people had a big problem with it, and so they actually, one of the executives at Google had to address it with their staff and be like, we're sorry. I got to find it and read it, what exactly they said, but it's
that's preposterous.
You hit it. It's exactly what it talks about. Yeah. No, I read it.
It makes me.
It's ridiculous.
You know what it is that makes me laugh is that it's not. Things have gotten so good that we're
creating problems.
We have to find things and intricacies to complain about.
I told you I shared on this show a while back. It was my niece had her friends over from work that they all worked at Facebook, and to listen to what like, it's totally normal when you get like 3 people, you're in your 20s, you all work at the same place. Like, what do? You bitch about the boss, you bitch about the work environment. Like, I think that's been happening forever. But to hear what they were bitching about, I thought was really fascinating.
Oh, dude.
It was like this whole thing about like, oh, so-and-so, he's got all Asian people and he's only got one Indian person. There's like no white people.
And they're complaining?
Yeah, they're just talking about the diversity of the person's group. Like that fucking
Just
matters.
by numbers. Yeah.
It's so crazy. It's gone backwards.
It's so weird.
That mentality is starting to self-destruct, by the way, where you're seeing now.
What was this?
Well, there's no end to it.
You did a great meme. It's what's the guy? And I believe he's
Thomas Sowell?
Yes, that's exactly you knew what I was thinking.
If you believe in rights of an individual, then it's then there's no such thing as gay rights, minority rights, straight rights. That would all you don't need to
It's
say
all
that.
human rights.
It's all rights.
Right.
It's this whole movement is starting to cannibalize and destroy itself. Where you're seeing. Women's marches get criticized because there's white women
There's
that
too
are
many men marching.
no, or there's white women
Or
running
white
it.
women,
We need to
yeah,
have
that's
other kinds of gay parades or gay events being led by a white male or by a Christian male. No, that doesn't count anymore. So now what's happening is it's a self-destructive, and this is, by the way, this is throughout all of history. This is not a new thing. When you go down the path of collectivization, where you collectivize people based on a group identity and remove the individual, it all starts to destroy itself. You saw this happen in the Soviet Union. You see this happen in any communist regime where it's the other guy. Once the other guy is gone, then it's other guy. And before you know it, people are starting to kill each other. It becomes a very terrible environment. And so this is what's happened, where it used to be, let's just value people for their qualities and their character. Now they're looking at groups and being like, there's not enough Indian people in that group. There's not enough women in that group.
Subcategories on subcategories, and it's like that every day there's a new invented term for something.
Yeah.
And it's just there's no end to it. I just don't see any end to the logic. And
they say they self-destruct. You see these groups that form themselves as a group to strengthen their group identity. So like we are the minority Muslim group or whatever, and then within that group they'll start to self-destruct. Well, wait a minute, you're straight. And so that means, but we're
have
gay,
privilege. Yeah.
So we separate, and then we separate, and then we separate, and it becomes self-destructive, and that's part of the problem. And I think Google's leadership it's this tech, because tech companies are very forward advancing, very fast growing, and I think that they're a lot of times trying things that are different. And one of the things that they
they're trying to be very progressive.
and they're also trying to give everybody a voice. We want to hear everybody, and we'll address any problem. Look, a company should allow that, but a company should also have strong leadership that says,
shut the fuck up, sit down.
yeah, no.
Follow me.
No, this is getting ridiculous now. If you don't like it here, leave.
Yeah.
We'll hire someone else. And so what they're doing is they're emboldening these people who work in one of the best companies. What was the average pay?
Yeah, $250.
Yeah, they were the highest.
It was like $250,000 a year.
Besides Facebook, yeah.
It was insane. Or it was $200,000 a year. They get ridiculous perks. Like if you work at Google, you make up 0.01% of the world's population. You have incredible benefits. You are a very lucky individual. Yes, you got there because you worked hard, but you're working in a fucking awesome place. And they're just sitting around thinking, what can I complain about today? When they say family friendly, then I think I can be offended by that. So let me start this petition at work or whatever. Get the fuck out of here.
Right.
Yeah, stop complaining.
Today's Squad is brought to you by MAPS Anabolic. If you're looking to maximize your overall muscle and strength, MAPS Anabolic is the perfect place to start. With a full 30-day money-back guarantee, there is absolutely zero risk. So what are you waiting for? Go to mindpumpmedia.com and get started today.
It's the motherfucking Quad.
Eagle has landed.
First question is from my name Matt.
My name Matt.
What are some things that you can do for optimum brain function to stay on top of the game? For example, clearer thinking, faster response time, etc.
This is a great question because for a long time, I used to always think about ways of optimizing my muscular strength and physical performance. But as I've gotten older, and since we started Mind Pump, where so much of what we do relies upon our mental sharpness and our ability to articulate our thoughts and converse and interview people and stuff like that, more and more I started focusing on what things can optimize my mind and my speed and how I talk. And what's funny is the things that optimize brain function are kind of the same things that optimize physical performance. It's just I look at them a little differently now. Like, for example, getting good sleep.
Yeah, that's huge.
Is a very big one, and that also benefits the rest of my body, but it also benefits my mind. Eating properly, and here's a funny thing. I feel like I can get away with it more when I don't think of things in terms of mental sharpness. Like if I eat poorly and don't get good sleep, my mental sharpness is off a little bit, but my physical performance, I could take some coffee or whatever and still have a hard workout. So I feel like I can tell more if I pay attention more to how my mind is working. Does that make kind of sense?
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah, I think so. I definitely, sleep has to be the highest. I mean, that's for me to think clearly and be able to retain information or remember something. It's all based off of sleep and how tired I am for the most part. Because for me, that's one of the biggest struggles for me, is really to have that ability and that sharpness. And when I haven't slept well, it is totally distorted as a result. And I notice it right away.
I feel like there's the difference for me between when my mind is feeling optimized and when it's just feeling whatever. The difference is my ability to grasp explanations, articulate what I want to say, my verbal fluency. That there's a big difference there. It's like when I'm feeling sharp, I'm fire. When I'm not feeling sharp, I'm searching sometimes for words, and I'll capture an idea. And if I don't talk about it right then and there, I'll lose it. Like we'll have conversation, and I'll be like, "Oh, that's a great point," and there'll be a great idea that I want to say, and then you'll finish your idea, and I forgot.
Right.
I already forgot my idea.
Right.
Sleep, hands down, is the most important thing that will affect that for me. And then the
but
second
then
thing,
movement. I mean, for me, movement is vital in terms of being able to have the energy and that type of, just overall energy towards whatever I'm trying to talk about. Like I need to move my body in order to express, all this pent up tension and everything else. And so for me to be able to move,
So much sexual tension.
all pent up.
That's what I think somebody said.
He's got to move.
I gotta move these hips.
Dude, you got to read Rise of Superman and then Stealing Fire if you like that afterwards, because I think that's a great book along these lines. So personally, there's been some things that I've noticed. To piggyback off of what Sal said, this job, above all other jobs I've ever done in my life, has given me the tools to measure this better than anything else. Like, because we are recorded when we talk, and it's live while we're doing it, right? So we don't go back and edit or change things. What comes out of my mouth comes out of my mouth, whether I like it or not, right? And then I can go back and I can listen to it, and then I can also assess, like, oh, what have I been doing this week, and what have I changed? Like, so this job has allowed me to measure that, and the things that I've noticed that have helped me the most or impacted me the most. Agreed, sleep for sure. Also agreed with Justin. When I'm in a rhythm of training and I'm being consistent, meaning 3+ times a week, and I'm very consistent with that, definitely notice a difference with my verbal fluency on here. I also notice too, just when my diet's in check, like maybe, and it's hard to say which one is more impactful because all of these are really impactful. One of the biggest things I noticed a couple of years ago when we did the ketogenic diet for the first time, I noticed a big difference in mental clarity from that. And I just probably attribute that to when I was eating high carbohydrates, where I was 300, 500, 600 grams of carbs. I was probably inflamed a lot, so probably high inflammatory foods I'm consuming. And so that just caused, probably a little bit of fogginess for me. And then switching over to keto, really did it. Also, when we fast and I come off,
I was going to bring that up. Fasting was a big component. For me
so
for
the fasting,
sharpness.
the fasting and the keto thing, I think it has made a big difference. I also noticed for me, because I'm advocate of marijuana. I got to a point where I was probably having too much. I mean, it was so fun that we had a job where I technically could smoke in here if I wanted to. Because I had that luxury, I think there was a few times where I would be doing that, and as fun as it may be and as much as it might have loosened up a conversation, it did take away from my mental sharpness. And so that was something that not only did I have to eliminate that, but I also had to reduce my consumption outside of this.
I have a kind of an interesting experience with that, though, personally, being like I was able to, I think, not live so in my head. So when I started to take like a 5 milligram dose, that allowed me to just express myself, I think, with less judgment, which helped me to explain myself, I thought, like a little bit more effectively, which was interesting.
Yeah, probably because what gets in your way is a little bit of anxiety over what you're going to say.
Yeah.
And so it lowers that, similar to how maybe a drink might do for someone at a party, where it lowers that feeling of anxiety. They're less inhibited, and then the words come out and flow more. And substances can definitely have that effect, especially if that's what's preventing you from, being able to be sharp in the first place. Now, too much.
Yeah, too much.
Yeah, for anybody. I mean, for me,
Well, you start ramp watering your way through it. Yeah.
Even even like the stuff like, I mean, we are pro our Organifi Pure, which is like a nootropic, right? Something like that.
That one works really well.
No, it does.
I like that.
But what I notice is if all those other things are out of whack, I don't really feel that. But if I'm dialed in on my diet, my workouts I'm getting in, I haven't been flooding my system with tons of caffeine, and then I take something like the Pure, oh my God, I'm flying. Or if I just have came off of caffeine or reduced my consumption a lot and then actually spiked it for a day, oh my God, I feel like I'm on fire.
Oh yeah.
But you have to learn the challenge of that is this, okay, I have all of a sudden today I decide I'm going to have 250 milligrams of caffeine, which is, double what I would normally intake. And it's like, boom, I'm on fire. I love this. And then you become addicted to that feeling. So then you run it back the next day, and then you run it back the next day. And then all of a sudden the same feeling that you were getting that first and second time you did it is starting to diminish. And so being able to have the mental and self-awareness to see that in yourself, that something's becoming a habit, pull back from it, and then reintroduce it. You can use tools like that. That's helped a lot.
One of the biggest motivators for me to come off caffeine is to capture the magic that caffeine can provide when you're sensitive to it. Because when I'm using it consistently, you lose that magic. Your body adapts. You get diminishing returns. Then if you don't have it, you feel totally foggy. And then if you have it, you maybe feel normal or sometimes even feel a little anxious. And so for me, for what we do with our job, there's definitely times I want to be on point. Like if we're going to do a big interview or if we're going to have an episode where I really want to convey a message, I would like to have a tool like caffeine, which you're right, Adam, it doesn't do much if everything else is shit. But if I dial everything else in, I can use it like this magic that I can take, and it'll bring out an extra element of performance out of me. And so this job has really, I mean, I have a whole protocol, like when we would travel and do these podcast hard trips and we would
I was going to bring that
meet
up.
with people, I would,
He was the house dad.
yeah, but yeah. I would give everybody, Organifi green juice, make sure we go to bed on time. We got to eat our vegetables. When we wake up in the morning, because I would treat it that way like I would for a game. Like if you're a high performance athlete, look, here's the deal. If you're a professional athlete, the best professional athletes, don't fool yourself. They have a ritual before their games, for sure. They do things that improve their performance, both psychologically, like maybe, we're putting the same socks on, and, physiologically, like I eat this kind of breakfast, it makes me feel the best. The night before I do a massage.
Well, you have to do that to be able to get yourself into that flow state, that optimal state where, you're not too much in your mind and you're experiencing it in the present time.
Right. So because of the work that we do now, I treat it very much like I am a professional athlete at what I do. And so it's real important for me to feel sharp. And so I make it. I've never made this much of a big deal about going to bed on time. Never. I was always. I could get around.
You're the Michael Jordan of podcasting.
And so no, not at all. I take it very seriously, and I've noticed the things that it does for my ability to to communicate.
Yeah.
And those are the big ones. Here's something that blew me away a while ago was learning that stimulants like Adderall actually did not make people more intelligent. This was crazy for me because I thought it did. I thought people would take it and,
that was crazy.
and perform better. And what they found was they didn't perform any better. They thought they performed better. Yeah. That was the difference. And so that's the thing about other substances is you may take certain things and feel like you may be doing better.
Right.
But they're not really improving your performance. The only things that really improve your performance are optimal health. So all the things that fall under that umbrella of optimal health, which are things that we advocate for optimal physical health, exercise, eating right, getting good sleep, managing stress. Those are the things that are going to optimize your brain function. Now, as far as supplements like Pure, one of the active ingredients is lion's mane, and lion's mane is not a stimulant. Lion's mane has been shown to improve cognitive function in people with diminishing cognitive function. And so with people who are normal, otherwise normal, it seems to have this kind of health promoting effect. So it's not like you take it and then you feel like you have caffeine, but if you take it on a consistent basis on top of being healthy, then you may notice gradually over time, you just feel sharper.
Next question is from Ikuluke. How strong should the average individual aim to be in the major movement categories such as hinge, squat, push, press, pull? What is considered the minimum amount of strength you should have for health and longevity?
Doug, would you, while we're talking about this and answering, there is a article that T-Nation had, and I know we've shared it on the forum.
Are you strong, or are you considered strong?
It's just a really good chart. It goes through all the major exercises, and it shows you
what you should be able to do for each one of these lists.
Yeah, and it's like good, very good, excellent,
or elite.
Yeah, something like that, right?
Yeah.
But there's like 3 categories to kind of give you an idea of like where where.
That was a good article.
I know, I went. I remember we went through all of them, and we all agreed like, these are legit numbers. Mm-hmm. I think this is a really good article.
Yeah. Oh, here we go. These are strength standards. Let's see what they said, and see if this is the same article. For health and longevity, it's a different question, okay, or a different answer. Health and longevity, and we'll go through these.
This is it.
Yeah,
this is decent, good, and great.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
So this is what they're saying, and we largely agree with this from a strength performance standpoint. So this is more than just longevity and health. So it says here, for a man, if you can squat 1.5 times your body weight, that's considered decent. 2 times your body weight is considered good. 2.5 times your body weight is great, and is considered great. For the bench press, it's
go to women. So
for women, it's 0.75% of your body weight for squatting. 1.25% of your body weight is good, and 2 times your body weight is great for squatting. And it goes down the list for bench press, and for deadlift, and for they don't really list the percentages for the other lifts. Now, I agree with these numbers for performance. I definitely think if you're a man and you can squat 2 times or 2.5 times your body weight, you're freaking strong. If you can squat 1.5 times your body weight, you're pretty damn strong. Mm. For longevity and health, that's different. Longevity and health, you just need to be strong enough to be able to move optimally, not have any pain, not limit your day-to-day activity. You be able to reach up above your head.
Yeah, it really depends on what you do every day, right? Mm-hmm. Like if you're if you're somebody who loads heavy boxes all day long for a living, like your strength requirements are probably higher than somebody who has a job where they sit at a desk all day long. And then if you're someone who sits at a desk all day long, then really all you need to be able to do is all these basic movements that would, outside of your job, would require you to do, which would be, like you said, reaching above your head and grabbing something, bending over and picking something up at the house. And so, those type of things for longevity purposes, you don't need to hit anywhere near these types of numbers.
In fact, I would even argue that if you have great numbers in all of these things, it might not be ideal for longevity.
Yeah, if you're, if you're somebody who's squatting 2 times to 3 times your body weight, that's a That's a lot of load. Yeah. That's a lot of load.
Probably not ideal for longevity.
Yeah, I mean, that's over 600 something pounds for me. Like if I was squatting over 600 pounds on a fairly regular basis, I can't imagine that the impact long term that would be on my joints. I mean,
Right.
Of course, if my mechanics were perfect and everything like that and flawless, but the likelihood of you being that perfect,
Well,
and you're
even
moving that
then,
kind of,
there's wear and tear, you know, over the years, and you just have to account for that. Like, no matter how perfect your form and technique, and you know what you've been eating and all that, like it's inevitable at some point that you're gonna have wear and tear and breakdowns.
Yeah, strength is for longevity. Strength is extremely important to maintain joint health and movement, and to give you stability, so you don't fall and hurt yourself, and give you strong bones and stuff like that. And of course, faster metabolism, so you can burn more calories, all those things we talk about. That's why strength is so important. Now, you can take strength to all kinds of new levels, but once you go into performance, you're taken away from longevity. And this is actually true. This is true for any physical pursuit. It's true for endurance, too. If you push your endurance to the max, you're probably not going to have the same, kind of
I
longevity.
can't help but always, I know Adam brings this up a lot too, but like you take that sort of avatar, like video game character, and give him the attributes that you want him to have. And it's like, you can only fill him up with so many of the attributes before it starts taking away from the other ones.
Right.
It's just, that's how these things work. Like, your body has to prioritize its focus and what it's good at. And
you're not going to be the most athletic person in the world and the healthiest person in the world.
It's just not going to happen.
No, you're not. They don't go hand in hand. They both have carryover to each other, very much so. But if you are on the elite level of athletes, there's going to be some extra wear and tear. You're doing stuff repetitively, which all those things don't lead to ideal longevity and health. So
you know what the irony of all that is? If you have the best longevity and health, at some point in your life, you will be one of the most athletic people in your age category. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, if you've got super good longevity and health, and you're
right when you're 90,
stretch it out.
and you're
as
like,
long as you can.
you're 75 or 80. You're fucking, for your age group, you're like the most athletic person that there
That's
is.
a really interesting theory right there. I wonder at what point does that happen, right? So let's say you take two people, identical and everything, right?
Identical twins.
Yeah,
Like, I could beat LeBron James once he's 92.
Yes.
Yeah, right. Like
You'll be able to hoop on his ass.
like imagine if you're
Like, I've been waiting it out all these years.
imagine you're his
It's a
twin
one-on-one.
You're his twin brother, and you went the ideal longevity health, and you're doing everything. You're working in, you're meditating, you're walking, balanced diet, lifting your body weight. You're not doing anything crazy, and you were but consistent as fuck your whole life. At what age does his elite level athleteness start to diminish and you guys catch up to each other? Because obviously right now in
It's
his
a bell curve,
in his
right?
prime, he's whooping your ass. You go out for a sprint, he's beating you. You go to jump as high as you can, he's beating you. You get under a squat rack, he's beating you. But at some point, you will end up catching up. And at what age would you guesstimate that happens?
God, it depends on the sport.
yeah.
I think if you're, it depends really on the sport.
Right, because he diminishes faster based off of what he's doing. If he's a linebacker in the NFL,
Yep.
he's probably fallen off the wagon by the time
I feel
he's
like golf's
40.
one of those only sports you could do. Like, once you're like, seasoned into your like 80s and 90s, you could still do it.
Yeah, like I feel like if we took some like old, Sardinian man or Okinawan, elderly person in their 80s, and because they tend to have incredible longevity, maybe 50 years or whatever from now, like Justin said, they'll be able to like outrun and play LeBron James, because he's going to be all fucked up from all the years of basketball. You know what I mean?
That's funny to think about.
It is.
Now the other
It's a long game.
The
You know
other
what I
thing
mean?
the other thing to speculate on is, what if, though, in the LeBron James type of athlete who's we all know is pushing his body to extremes and isn't ideal for longevity, retires next year, at his peak physically, and then switches his mindset to longevity.
All recovery.
Right.
And,
Then switches his mindset to longevity. Then it'd be interesting to see, because you would think that all the one positive thing of stretching the boundaries and pushing is the adaptation process that over time is going to have.
You've stretched out your capacity.
Right.
Yeah.
So your work
is
capacity
greater
is
than most people.
right. So then we have a different argument there.
Well,
right?
there's two things. One, I think it'll reverse a lot of the damage. I don't think it'll reverse all of it, but I do. But here's something else that's interesting. the genetics that make you an extreme athlete tend to not be the same genetics that make you live a long time. So when you look at the numbers, the very, very tall and very, very big tend to not live as long as people who are smaller and shorter. And athletes tend to be fucking giants. They tend to be these monsters of humans with these huge bone structures.
All horsepower.
Just big people. And you don't see a whole lot of extremes, is what it is, really. You don't see a whole lot of extremes that live a long time. The people that tend to live a long time, besides all the lifestyle factors like eating the certain way and
Isn't
being
it weird?
active,
I just find
is in the middle.
I find it fat. I mean, this is the God side of me who just thinks that he played it out this way on purpose. It's like you get this option, right? You can be this superstar athlete and have the most amazing 30 years of your life, but then it's going to end short. It's like, and you're going to be financially wealthy. You're going to have all these attributes. Everyone's going to want to be you. And then you could be this guy who's just like, I'm pretty much average at everything. Nobody knows who I am. I'm not tall. I'm not short. I'm not fat. I'm not skinny. I'm just kind of in the middle of the way. But, you'll probably go unnoticed forever, but you're going to go unnoticed for 90 years. You know what I'm saying? It's like, isn't it funny how it's just how that all weighs out?
When I look at it, it's like this. Like, would I trade and we're talking about extreme, like high performance athletes, but let's just talk about most people, right? Would I trade higher levels of performance and strength and looking a particular way for the negatives that happen as you age, where you can't take care of yourself, where you're immobile? I don't know, man. I used to train a lot of elderly people, and the depression rate among the elderly is very, very high, and it's mainly because a lot of them can't do shit for themselves. And, that could be 10 years of your life. Like, you could be 70, and from 70 to 80, it's just it sucks because you can't take care of yourself. You can't move very well.
You're just chair bound.
Your health is just not good. So I don't know if it's worth it. Maybe because I'm getting older. I'm not old yet, but as I get older, maybe the longevity is becoming more and more alluring because I don't want to live the last 10 years of my life, not being able, being able to do what I want to do, not be independent.
Yeah, I want to have options. Yeah.
Next question is from Take a Yes Fit. Elaborate on fresh versus frozen veggies and the pros and cons of both.
Yeah,
Max Lugavere just did a post on this.
Oh, really? What did he say? Did you guys see what he said?
Yeah, he's basically. I mean, he actually literally did a pro versus con on fresh and frozen, and what it really came down to is there's not that much of a big difference. And if anything, the little bit that you lose from the freshness from being a frozen food like this, you gain in the ability to be able to store and keep and have it be accessible at any time, right? So,
well, the thing about frozen that I learned this, I don't know, about 10 years ago, and I thought it was really cool. I had this client that worked out in my facility who worked in this field. They actually produced fruits and vegetables. And I was having a conversation with one of my other clients, and I remember saying, if you buy veggies, you should always get fresh. And he says, no, Sal, that's not correct. And so I said, well, why? Because I knew that was his field. And he says, well, if it's out of season or if it's getting shipped from far away, they pick it before it ripens and has its maximum nutrients and phytonutrients and antioxidants. And then by the time it gets to you, you're getting something that's less nutritious. It's got lower levels of antioxidants, lower levels of some of these beneficial compounds that we're finding in things like sulforaphane and other types of things, indole 3-carbinol in broccoli, for example. He says when they freeze them, they pick them at their peak ripeness. And they pick them and they freeze them. And when you freeze them, you literally maintain their freshness and maintain their nutrients. Mm-hmm. And so, I remember being blown away by that because I always thought fresh was always better.
Right.
So I did more research, and he's correct. And where I ended up with that is if it's in season, if it's a vegetable or fruit that's in season, fresh is good. If it's not, you're better off eating frozen.
That makes sense.
And there's a lot of places in America where, we live in California. We're a bit spoiled that we can get a lot of things in season all year long.
Yeah.
Not just from here, but from Mexico, which is real close to us. So avocados, we can get pretty much year round. Have you ever gone to the East Coast or wherever and tried to get fruit when it's out of season and see what it looks like? It's terrible. I mean, you go over to get an avocado somewhere, like, this is not an avocado, because they have to ship it from so far because it doesn't not grown locally. Or you get some strawberries, and I remember looking at the strawberries. I'm like, these are terrible. They don't look
that
like
makes
the ones
sense.
we get.
I mean, my biggest qualm is just like the texture and the taste and like all that. Like I definitely anecdotally, I love fresh as much as possible, and I know that there's CSAs and things that locally that have in-season vegetables and fruits that I can then choose from. So I base a lot of the meals off of what we do have in terms of like the fresh fruits and veggies that are available. But I'm not opposed to the frozen thing, because it definitely does capture all those nutrients. It's not like you're losing it.
When you're, and I think that's the point that Max was making, and I can totally relate to this being a bachelor of many years. Like having fresh vegetables and fresh fruit is
more
really
work.
It's tough. It's tough when when you're by yourself. Like, what are you going to buy? One banana? You know what I'm saying? Like, no, you buy 5 or 6, and that means I got to have a banana every single day for that, that week.
You got to eat it quickly
every single day.
Yeah.
And, I don't always want a banana every single day. And so then, X amount of them go bad. So not being able to have frozen food is a bit of a challenge. So the only knock that I ever had on frozen is sometimes because they preserve them in sodium. There's the sodium intake in there. So if you're somebody who's watching,
if you're a competitor,
if you're watching your sodium intake and you're taking in a lot of frozen stuff, sometimes that's you'll see that they have.
Now, for the average person,
doesn't matter.
Nah,
doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So if you're talking about health, it's not a big deal. I'm just saying that if you are like a competitor, like I was competing and I'd use
and this
stuff.
is like for the few weeks before, or 1 week before competition.
Well, yeah, and even just being aware of it. It's not even a matter of like, can I not do it? It's just that, when you're somebody who's tracking and paying attention and watching your weight and watching the way you look every single day, if you're eating all fresh stuff and you're eating a relatively, moderate sodium filled diet, and then all of a sudden I have, a day where I have a bunch of frozen vegetables or fruit in the diet, it could cause me to retain some water for a day or two, and like that could throw you off mentally.
Freezing is one of the, because we always talk against processed food and this, that, and the other. I mean, technically processing means you're taking something and changing it to improve its shelf life. Freezing was one of the first ways humans learned to preserve food freshness, to prevent it from going bad. Obviously, because you're preventing bacteria and decay from happening. And freezing is one of the best ways to do that. And it's fine. It's perfectly fine. It's kind of cool. You can freeze something and not make it worse for you. It's not like you're adding.
It was salt packing, right?
Yeah. So it's not like you're altering the nutrition of it, or you're making it unhealthy because you're adding preservatives or whatever. It's just frozen. It costs way less. Frozen vegetables are cheaper because they're easier to ship. Frozen vegetables last longer. I can take out what I want to eat and leave what I don't want to eat. The nutrition is perfectly fine. Everything from the antioxidants to the phytonutrients, everything is in them, just like it would be when it's fresh. I guess the drawback is the taste. You cook a frozen vegetable, it tends to get soggy.
Yeah, it's nasty.
It's not as good.
I'm not a fan.
I get frozen all the time.
Yeah.
Next question is from R. Brock74. What are the best ways to get over a breakup?
Oh, jeez. Who picked this question?
Probably Justin. He's been dumped a lot. Go ahead, Justin.
I have. Dude, I mean, it's a perfect way to start really working on yourself and working out, all right? I mean, what an opportune time to get buff and awesome, honestly, though, that I remember having to just go right into the gym and just pour myself into the gym. And that was like the best distraction ever to get over somebody and like just kind of get through that. But yeah, I remember telling the story of the breakup I had when I was out in Chicago, and it was just like, that was one of those that just totally floored me, because it was between it being like freezing, I had no friends, I just broke up with my girlfriend, and it was just, it feels like everything's against you, man, and the gym was my savior, dude.
How long did you stay sad for? Do you remember?
That was a rough one, because it was about 4 years, that I was with her. We didn't break up or anything. It was just like a hard break right after that. And then it was, it took me quite a few months, I think, to finally get over it.
They when they do studies on people who go through hard breakups, the effect on the body is like it's like losing a loved one.
No, it's an interesting thing. I've been through a lot of breakups, and only one of them devastated me, and it was my first love. And one of the things when I got older and I reflect back on what was so different and what changed me, and along the point that Justin just made, I think is so true, is at that point I was so invested in her and not myself that I felt devastated afterwards. She was my everything. My life revolved around her, and I think this happens a lot in relationships. I think we get into relationships, and many people lose their identity and who they are, and they don't know anything but each other. And then when it ends, that's why it's so devastating. And all the other breakups I had after that, some people might think that I was cold or heartless, but no, I never lost myself after that. I learned from that mistake, and going forward, I no longer put that much into the other person if I first was not putting that into myself. And so I didn't lose myself ever again.
It's that whole identity thing, right? You just identified yourself as being this person that's with that person.
Right.
Yeah, to be able to now like figure out who you are, like exactly the same lesson I learned was like don't put that much weight in that area, like really be comfortable with who you are regardless of the circumstances.
Yeah, and I think that you get so hung up on this person that and that if you feel this way afterwards, and this is the hardest time to do this, because of course you feel rough and you're feeling sorry for yourself, or you're pointing the blame on what they did wrong in the relationship, and you're kind of caught up in this whole storm. And it takes a lot of discipline to detach yourself from all that and have some perspective and go, okay, why do I feel this way? And 9 times out of 10, when you start diving into it, you'll find that the reason why you feel this way is because you feel that you need that person. And that's a really bad place to be in any relationship. One of the things I used to be so turned on by that Katrina used to say to me is she'd say, I don't need you, I want you. And
boom, sex right there.
Yeah, totally, right. And I love that. I don't want you to need me. I want you to want me. I want you to want me to be a part of this journey. You want me to be a part of these things and enjoy this process with you, but you most certainly don't need me, and your life goes on without me. Like, that doesn't make me feel insecure to hear a partner say that. In fact, it makes me feel really good, because then it gives me permission to also do me, to be me, and to be the best version of myself. And what's ironic of all that is
opportunities to do me.
Right. The more selfish you are with bettering yourself, the better you will be as a partner. And so use this opportunity of being in this situation to find yourself again and bury yourself into the things that make you a better person and grow as an individual. And for me, that was always like reading and work, making money and being successful, and then my health and fitness. And I would pour myself into those things. And then when you get reconnected with those things, don't lose it again when you get into another relationship. The right partner, you should be able to add into that mix, and you never lose those things. But if you continue, like what happens with a lot of people is they fall into patterns where they just keep dating the same person, but it's another person, right? Just a different name, but it's the same issues. You still keep running your whole life around them, and you lose sight of who you are and the things that make you happy and that fill your cup. And then all of a sudden you break up again, and then you're in this whole fucking cycle again. It's like find yourself again. Find what fills your cup that makes you happy. Pour everything into that, and then when the time comes and you meet another person, add them to that. Don't take away from those things to try and live for them.
Yeah, I think people like to talk about how to get over a breakup because it's so painful, and they want a way to take away the pain. I'm not just going to say breakup. I'm going to say any kind of a loss, because they all feel terrible. Here's the thing with any loss: the pain is not going to go away. Okay, what I mean by that is not that you're not going to get better at some point. You will, but you're going to feel pain, so accept the fact that it's going to hurt. What'll get you through that is a sense of purpose. That's always what gets you through pain. That's always what gets you through the tough times. If your sense of purpose was that person, you're going to have a tough time because they're not with you anymore. If your sense of purpose is not that person, whether it be your family, your work, your religion, whatever, then you're still going to feel the pain. It's still going to suck. But you're going to have a sense of purpose that's going to get you through the most difficult times of your life. And this is why and I've gone through some incredibly difficult losses. I just went through a divorce, although I wouldn't put it in the same category as a breakup in the sense that it was mutual, still very difficult. But before that, I lost somebody very, very close to me, somebody who was like a second mother to me. And they passed away. They died. It was very, 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 very painful, very difficult. Anybody who's ever lost somebody close to them will know how difficult and painful that can be. And what got me through it was my sense of purpose for the rest of my life, and also what I took from that relationship that I had with this individual. And that's what you have to do. Otherwise, it's unbearable. If it's all about the pain and pleasure, you're going to be in a situation where it's going to be almost completely unbearable. I mean, this is true for any most. Look, I had a client who she lost her son. I can't even imagine what that must feel like to lose a child. I can't even imagine. But she did. And you know what carried her was her other child. She said she had another kid that she had to be strong for and maintain and continue. So that became her sense of purpose. And she told me that's what helped her survive through that. When we're talking about getting better yourself, going to work out, improve your business, improve your friendships and relationships, that's what we mean that's what I mean by sense of purpose. It's like, okay, I'm in this pain, this sucks. Let me find some purpose that's going to get me through this difficult time. It could also be just looking at yourself and saying, boy, this is challenging. I can't wait to see what kind of person I'm going to become at the end of this, because it's going to be a better person. Mm-hmm. How can I become a better person? But it's going to hurt, man. I tell you what, one of the worst things you could do when you're in a lot of pain is numb it. It doesn't make it go away. It just prolongs the pain, and it just kicks the can down the road. And you don't want to numb your pain, because that's what can get people into a lot of trouble. It can turn into addiction. Alcohol or drugs or sex. It can turn into more terrible relationships or terrible situations. So you just have to accept that this hurts like crazy, and I just got to feel it, and I need to find a sense of purpose so that I can keep taking one step after another and keep moving forward. And that's it. Look, if you go to mindpumpfree.com, you can download any one of our free guides, including our How to Squat Like a Pro guide. That one's actually getting a lot of activity right now, and it's got some advanced techniques on how to take your squat to the next level. You can also find us all on Instagram. We have individual pages. My page is Mind Pump Sal, Adam is Mind Pump Adam, and Justin is Mind Pump Justin.
Thank you for listening to Mind Pump. If your goal is to build and shape your body, dramatically improve your health and energy, and maximize your overall performance, check out our discounted RGB Super Bundle at mindpumpmedia.com. The RGB Super Bundle includes MAPS Anabolic, MAPS Performance, and MAPS Aesthetic. 9 months of phased expert exercise programming designed by Sal, Adam, and Justin to systematically transform the way your body looks, feels, and performs. With detailed workout blueprints and over 200 videos, the RGB Super Bundle is like having Sal, Adam, and Justin as your own personal trainers, but at a fraction of the price. The RGB Super Bundle has a full 30-day money-back guarantee, and you can get it now plus other valuable free resources at mindpumpmedia.com. If you enjoy this show, please share the love by leaving us a 5-star rating and review on iTunes, and by introducing Mind Pump to your friends and family. We thank you for your support, and until next time, this is Mind Pump.